Hello everyone and welcome back. We are now going to shift to talking about ecosystem services. So ecosystem services, you should already know what those are since they were talked about in the introductory modules. So insects are responsible for many ecosystem services that contribute to the betterment of our planet. Some of these services include pollination, biological pest control, and decomposition, and we'll take a closer look at all of those. So first, let's look at pollination. So pollination refers to the cross transfer of pollen between different plants, causing their reproductive organs to become fertilized and allowing them the plant to reproduce. So basically, pollen is being transferred between one flower and another flower, which causes the flowers to be able to make seeds. So this is extremely important in the agriculture industry since many of the foods we eat, such as almonds, blueberries, and tomatoes, are all extremely dependent on pollination. And it would take millions of dollars for humans to recreate the act of pollination if pollinators no longer existed. So this is one of the reasons we really need to protect our pollinators. So pollinators include bees, some wasps, flies, and some beetles, and also some hemipterans. So in this first picture, we can see a cute little bumblebee, and she's pollinating a flower. As you can see, this yellow blob on her leg, this is pollen, and she's carrying it on a part of her leg called the corbicula, or the pollen basket. Next, we've got some pollen beetles, and they are feeding on this pollen. And as they move to a different flower, they'll bring some of that pollen with them and pollinate the flower. We've also got this cool hummingbird moth, and she is feeding on some pollen, and as she moves to another flower, she will pollinate that flower. And lastly, this is a really cool example. This is a hoverfly, which you will probably see, they're fairly common. And just by the coloring, you might think that this is a bee or a wasp because it has the yellow and the black stripes. However, we can tell that it's a fly because it has these short antennae. They have only one pair of wings, and as you can see, the eyes are a little bit different than the way a bee's or a wasp's eyes look. And so this is a case of Batesian mimicry. And what is meant by this is that a harmless animal is mimicking an animal that is harmful. So if you just saw this hoverfly in passing, you might think that it's a bee or a wasp, and that might scare you away. And so that's their goal. That's why they're colored like this. So next we've got biological pest control. And so biological pest control occurs basically when a predatory insect is feeding on or parasitizing on typical plant pests, and this is helpful because it keeps the pest population under control. So this is also really important to the agricultural industry since it prevents crops from being destroyed by pests. And so an example of this is ladybugs and aphids. So aphids are herbivorous, they feed on plants, and if there are too many aphids on a plant, then they will destroy that plant. Ladybugs will feed on these aphids and keep this population under control, and it prevents them from destroying the plant. So this relationship also exists between parasitic wasps and caterpillars, as well as between parasitic wasps and fire ants. So here we've got a cool picture of this ladybug feeding on the aphid that's right there. And here's another really cool picture. So this shows a caterpillar that has been clearly the victim of a parasitoid wasp. So the wasp has laid its eggs inside this caterpillar. They've hatched, they've become larvae, they've broken out and clearly developed into pupa. So all of these white little rice-looking things, those are all pupa. And if you want to learn more about this phenomenon, which is really, really cool, you can watch this YouTube video right here. Next, we're talking about decomposition. So this was brought up in the introduction. Have you ever wondered why our world isn't completely covered in carcasses and dung? This is because of insects. So just like certain insects feed on plants, or they feed on other insects, or they feed on seeds or fruits or anything like that, there are insects that subsist on dung and carrion is just the formal name for dead things or carcasses. And so this is important for nutrient cycling, since the insects are able to break down those materials and return nutrients back into the ecosystem. And the insects that perform these tasks include dung beetles, carrion beetles, and flies. So here we've got a cute picture of this dung beetle, and it is rolling this ball of dung. And so basically they will stand on their front legs and then push the dung ball with their back legs to their nest. And here is a picture of some yellow dung flies on a patch of dung. And like it says here, it may seem like a dirty job, but somebody has got to do it. The last thing we'll talk about is insects as food sources. This may seem pretty obvious, but insects are extremely important to the food chain. So many animals feed on insects, which means they're really important to our ecosystem. So a few examples of animals that feed on insects are frogs and birds. And some people are even trying to bring eating crickets into mainstream culture, since they are a good protein source. Additionally, insect products like honey and lac are used in food products by humans. So here is a container of, you can see 100% pure cricket powder. So people put this in stuff and it has some extra protein in it. Also honey. Humans have consumed honey and used honey for medicinal purpose for centuries. And then this is a cool article from Scientific American. Chocolatiers look at ways to take bug-based varnish off candy. A lot of people don't know this, but lac, which is also known as shellac, and confectioner's glaze, it's a secretion from the lac bug, and it's actually used in many candies to give them a shiny coating. And also, obviously, animals like anteaters use insects as food sources. So as an exercise, try to think of some additional ecosystem services that insects may provide. Then use Google to look up these ecosystem services and see also if you can find any ecosystem services that were not discussed. So thank you guys for watching, and next we will look at safety.